This is test 9, section 10, page 926 in the official SAT study guide, question 13. So these are the last two questions in the last section of the SAT, which is a 10-minute rating section. And since it is the second to last question, you know it's going to be tough. Okay, so let's check it out. When we read, we first form innumerable impressions, and then those impressions are evaluated as we read on. So this actually doesn't sound bad, but the problem that I'm noticing with this sentence is that this portion of the sentence is passive, meaning that the person, the reader who is doing this action, evaluating impressions, is not cited in this part of the sentence. We are led to question who is evaluating their impressions as they read on. So the correction will eliminate this problem. So I can tell, especially since it's the second to last question, I can tell that A is not good enough, and I can tell that the fact that it's passive is enough of a problem, because that is the kind of problem that they would have in the last two questions in the writing section. Okay, I want to identify two answers that are wrong because they include comma splices, meaning that a comma is used inappropriately to divide two complete thoughts. So D and E are out because they are comma splices. So let's just read those so you can hear what it sounds like when two complete sentences are connected by a comma. So D would read, when we read, we first form innumerable impressions. Then we evaluate those impressions as we read on. A big clue that you have a comma splice is when you have a comma and then you have a subject, like a person or a thing, and then a verb. This is a big clue because then is not a conjunction. It's not an appropriate conjunction to link two complete thoughts. So then is not sufficient after a comma. So D is out because it's a comma splice where two complete sentences are divided by a comma. Let's read E. When we read, we first form innumerable impressions. We evaluate those impressions then as we read on. So it's the same problem. We have the subject and the verb. So we have a complete thought, and there's just a comma before it, which is not sufficient according to our grammar rules. So now we just have it down to B and C. Let's check those out. B reads, when we read, we first form innumerable impressions and then evaluate those impressions as we read on. This is pretty good to me. Let's compare it to C. When we read, we first form innumerable impressions, and then those impressions are evaluated as we read on. So to me, it strikes me as odd that there's then here. So this is a very subtle distinction. But it seems unnecessarily repetitive because the way this sentence is phrased, we know that evaluating the impressions happens after we form the impressions. So it's not necessary to say then here, and it's redundant, and that is something that can be wrong with a correction, especially this late in the section. So C is wrong because it's excessively wordy because it includes a redundant word. So C is out. So B is our best answer because it's precise, it's clear, it doesn't have needless words. So B, right into the sentence, gives us, when we read, we first form innumerable impressions and then evaluate those impressions as we read on. So it eliminates the original problem of passive voice and it corrects it without introducing any unnecessary words.